Rise. Evil Dead Rise. That's the latest movie I have seen. Before I talk to you, it's always go with my background. I consider myself a fair fan of the original trilogy of the Evil Dead. I always remember my first time watching them when I was kind of like 21 years old. But those moments I remember it like history, because it was during those times in which we had to go to the video stores, or in my case DVD stores, in order to rent them, and occasionally I don't think that my country was very familiar with the movies, to the point that it was kind of like a little bit rare to find them. That is until I remember that I saw Cinemassacre's Monster Madness, and those ones introduced me to the Evil Dead, and it piqued out my curiosity to watch them. So I got lucky and found out the first movie for the first time in many years. That movie legitimately scared me. I was really into it, and kind of applauding some of the bold things that they do. It was wacky, it was crazy. No, that's not one. It was wacky, it was scary, it was kind of like no hold bars on the blood and the gore. And then I saw the second movie, which people told me that it was partially considerably better than the last one, and it does. It makes it kind of amplifies a lot of the stuff that it had, and then kind of turned into a kind of like a dark comedy. But it cements a lot of the things that many people are known from the Evil Dead. Then came Army of Darkness, and that one I came to even love it also. So pretty much I will consider that the Evil Dead trilogy is probably one of my favorite trilogies in cinema universe. And then of course I did saw of the musical. It was one of those rare occasions in which they show it on Newark for one night, and I was like, I had to go it, because someone even told me that if you want to go to Evil Dead the musical, you have to you have to not go with decent clothes. You have to be, because you're gonna get wet, and wet I was, because they spill out fake blood into the audience, and it was an experience. I did like the musical. Then of course came out that spin-off. Well, kind of. I wouldn't exactly say remake. I would more like a reboot movie, because this one, the reboot didn't have much of. It didn't feel like it was remaking the whole thing. It was just kind of like taking the concept and going into a different direction. And there were some things that I kind of forgot. But honestly, whenever I remember that reboot movie, I always remember that there is this particular guy who he gets kind of like with the blunt of everything. He gets stabbed. What was it? I don't know. I don't remember exactly the movie. I haven't revisited, but still, I do remember this, that there is one guy who kind of gets wallop, scratch, and he kind of became a bloody mess during the whole movie. That's the thing that I remember. But I did remember that being a little bit disappointed with the ending so far. And just in case you ask me, no, I didn't give myself my time to watch Ash vs. the Evil Dead series. I know that Bruce Campbell returns to his iconic role, and as much as I did wanted to watch it, I didn't have kind of like the means to watch it. Although many people told me that it's pretty good, and it's technically a love letter for all of the fans of the Evil Dead. Considering that this is kind of like an IP that it got a lot of fans, and I can see why. And why? Like I said, I really liked the trilogy and some of the directions that the movie had. But then I saw the trailer for this one, Evil Dead Rise, and to be honest, I got a little bit worried because it felt like one of those generic horror movies that they only take it by name, because it didn't exactly felt like Evil Dead. I mean, I'm not gonna go exactly being picky and say that, oh, for it to be an Evil Dead, you need Bruce Campbell, but that's not necessarily true. True. Although they already got their chance to revive the character of Ash Williams in other media, so I'm not exactly kind of like picky saying that, oh, you must need this and you must need that or something like that. Actually, for an Evil Dead movie, the only thing you need are the Necronomicon and the deadites. That's basically all you need about for an Evil Dead. And of course, shotguns and chainsaws. This one kind of became kind of like mandatory on this one. But the biggest thing that I was mostly worried about it is that I felt like I was gonna predict the whole thing, because when I saw the trailer, I was like, okay, there's a mother, it has children. Oh yeah, the children are gonna survive because God forbid Hollywood is gonna kill off children. They always automatically have kind of like kind of like a plot armor. And I swear that I don't want to sound mean-spirited, but honestly, this is what it always happens. Usually when you have children, you automatically sense that, oh, they're gonna survive. So I was half anticipating and half dreading the movie that's gonna be kind of like one of those generic horror movies, but they're gonna amp it up with some of the things that I'm not exactly a fan of, which is basically mother who is overprotective of the children, and the children are pretty much obnoxious, and they're gonna survive. And lo and behold, I was surprised. Not gonna lie, I was surprised that I really liked the movie. I really liked the movie a lot, but let's not overhype it as much as many people in reviews are overhyping it, saying like, wow, this is one of the greatest horror I've seen this year or something like that. I wish I could go there, but I'm not the kind of guy who overhype it, because honestly, the best way I can describe Evil Dead Rise is that it's one of those horror movies that it plays the cards right. It makes some mistakes, and I kind of wish that it went a little bit further and a little bit more mean-spirited, because they had the cards and it played it right. I just wish they had played it a little bit more in order to make it more memorable, because other than that, it felt like another one of those Blumhouse movies that, okay, you're gonna get kind of like this plot here and there, and that's it. But you know what? At least it succeeded on what it did. It really entertained me as an avid horror fan. It's mostly kind of a little bit like the Super Mario Brothers movie, that it is gonna appease a lot of the fans of Nintendo, which there's a lot. I mean, look at Mario. Mario now is amassing a lot of money, and it's become one of the most successful video game movies in history. Which I could have been happy, but that means there's gonna be more Jack Black. Okay, I should not rant about the Mario movie. I like the Super Mario movie, don't get me wrong. It's just that. Why am I talking about that when I'm supposed to be talking about the Evil Dead? So you know what? Let's continue on, and you'll see why I think that I think that the Evil Dead Rise is a great movie, but I think it could have been better. So the movie the movie centers around this family in an apartment in Los Angeles. They get the visit of the one of the aunt of the children, and she and the mother they're a little bit kind of like at odds, but still kind of like, that they're trying their best to connect with each other. That is until then an earthquake happened. It opens a hole in the wall, and one of the kids finds out kind of like an underground bank that apparently that the apartment was constructed under this bank vault. And then here the kid finds some long play, vinyl recordings of something, because the kid is interested because he's a DJ, and also he finds the Necronomicon, in which he thinks that it might be worth a lot of money because they're in some financial problems, and of course because of his naivety to the whole thing, he activates the Necronomicon unknowingly, and that brings a lot of chaos basically on that. Well, I wouldn't say the whole apartment, just the whole floor of that apartment. It becomes into chaos because at that point the mother gets possessed by the evil entity, and well, it turns into the Evil Dead. That's the best way I can describe it about it. And honestly, it's a basic plot that you get in some horror movies, and and I would say that it becomes a little bit predictable, but the predictability is not exactly one of its weaknesses, because again, it plays the cards right. Let's say, for example, the acting of the players. What was the name of the name of the mother? The actress who plays the mother during the whole movie. She's kind of like possessed, and she does a great job. The aunt character played by Lily Sullivan, she does fine. It's not exactly like Bruce Campbell material and Bruce Campbell charm, because let's face it, it's gonna be hard to top down the charm of Bruce Campbell, and because he made his own way. And honestly, I think that what works on Bruce Campbell is that he's not exactly a horror trope in itself, because what I got from Bruce Campbell in the original Evil Dead is that most of the horror movies is always technically the final girl. It's always the girl who survives. It's the woman who always survives the kind of like the crazy things that are happening during it. This is why we have the trope of the final girl. Rarely we see a guy becoming kind of, well, the final girl, for lack of thereof, and it worked. That part at least worked for me, and no, it's not because of what you think of. I think that it becomes kind of like a bit of fresh air to do something like that. Sometimes the final guy is kind of like a rare thing now on horror movies, and of course they cemented a little bit more in the Evil Dead 2, in which they gave him kind of like a more snarky personality and made him a badass. They tried on the reboot, and they almost had it, but then they got. I think they kind of missed a step during the final minutes, because I felt like the final girl felt a little bit unearned. In this one, the closest to the Bruce Campbell character is the Lily Sullivan character, although it's not exactly as snarky as ever. Yeah, the sirens like always. Yeah, but doesn't need to be. She has her own thing, and I don't remember yeah, Alisa Sutherland. That was the name of the mother character. Alisa Sutherland. There's a mother character named Ellie, she she does a great job once she becomes the undead, and she plays it out menacingly and creepy, uh, and let's not forget that it's also thanks to the wonderful practical makeup that they do. The children are doing also they're pretty good in their own right. Although I think that there is kind of like there is kind of like the older sister, the older brother, and the little girl. The little girl, let's say that I was like, they are not gonna kill her, and not even the kids, because plot armors. It always happened with children, which unfortunately I think that this is something that Hollywood likes to. They don't want to touch that because they think that it's gonna sound very, very mean spirited. But without spoiling too much, I will say that it kind of half break my expectations on that one. There are some other characters that are other tenants in the building. There's kind of like the other one guy who is a little bit of a Latino. There's this bearded guy he's this bearded guy who is the one that they say that he has a shotgun. There's another kid in the tenants. So the whole, you can tell that because of this, the whole floor is basically meat fodder for the deadites. And that's pretty much I have to say about the acting. And cinematography, I will say that they almost play out my expectation, and they kind of save themselves from a typical cinematic storytelling trap that meant that some people, they kind of get annoying. All these movies in which they say that, okay, we're gonna start the movie in which stuff is happening, and then after stuff is happening, then we cut back, like for example 1 week later, and people will go, no, 1 week 1 week ago, and people will go, then the mystery is gone. We are not invested because we know what will happen later in the movie. This one almost does it, but at least it does it a little bit more clever, because we get one of those one day ago storytelling scenario. But the good thing that they did is that the one day scenario is, both scenarios are a total different setting, because we start out with a movie with these people in a cabin in the woods, and it's really well set up. It's really well set up, so much that when the title screen appears, it's one of the most creative title screen appearances I have seen in a movie this day. And that I like it. And then one day ago, I was like, oh, is this gonna happen like that? But nope. It's just something that something that have platter for later, because what we see early in the movie it has nothing to do with the plot that we are gonna be centered. But still, it's about the Evil Dead. Some of those things are gonna left it at the end. And cinematography wise, I will say that yes, just like the Evil Dead, the other Evil Dead movies, you're gonna cringe by some of the violent stuff that happened. There is undead eating glass. There is probably one of the cringiest moments that you have is that you see one getting injured with a cheese grater. I just grabbed this cheese grater to use it as a thumbnail. I don't know why I grabbed it right now, but you get the idea. For violent things, you're gonna go through a little bit of cringe. and and the whole thing gets intense. By the way, it's so intense and in the whole that it kept me on the edge of the seat, because in a way, I'm not gonna say that they're unlikable characters. They're characters that they have their flaws, but none of them come off as mean-spirited. Well, maybe the deadites, but that's how they're supposed to be. There's even kind of like a big moment in that you're gonna see the whole violence in the lens of what you look in an apartment eye socket. I don't know how do you say it here in English, but you see the peephole of those apartment doors. You see it. You see the carnage that is happening. That is, and you get it. It's so, how can I say? It's violent. That's the best way I can describe it. And well, now that I am overhyping a little bit this movie, I will say that it does have some faults. Like, for example, I already mentioned that some of the things kind of comes off as predictable. And there is kind of like one moment. There is one moment in which it's something that kind of happened with some, and you find it debatably dumb. There is a moment in which a character kind of like falls pretty easily on one of the deadites' trap, and it almost cost almost everything. But the execution it didn't feel kind of like earned, because what happens is that this character is kind of have shown that it is smart, but unfortunately comes a moment in which it fell out a little bit too easily, considering that the character is smart. When you see it, you're gonna know what I am talking about. So that moment it didn't get me. And also I will say that the final moments of the movie, it has some good stuff, but the predictability of the situation kind of rubs me in the wrong way. I will tell you a little bit in my spoiler section, but there is also one thing that I do also want to mention, is that yes, this movie also has the Necronomicon. It's a little bit different from the other movies, but still, I really like the design. And you know what? I'm a big sucker about good art, especially on horror movies. You know those horror movies in which you kind of like open the Necronomicon and you see all these horrific satanic drawings, because the Necronomicon is bound in flesh and written in blood. You see it, and it has the teeth marks also that closes the book, and you see all these drawings, and I really want to know who is the one who made all these drawings, because these drawings are amazing. This is one of the things that I really love in horror movies. When you see all these satanic drawings, that is really disturbing. Really, I just want to know the sheer bravery and courage of the artist to draw all these things and not having nightmares by saying that, oh my God, what have I drawn? That is, I really want to know. So this one, I already say that there are some practical effects on the blood, which I like. That makes the movie how can I say? I think that I liking this movie even more than Renfield. Although, don't get me wrong, I like Renfield, but this Evil Dead Rise kind of felt a little bit more earned on its progress. Except, of course, on a certain moment. But you know what? I think I want to rant onto something, but it will go a little bit into spoiler territory. So, you know what? It is time for me to warn you, and it's time for my evil spoiler. Yeah, we're gonna go evil, and honestly, I will gonna go a little bit evil. So let's get started. Are you ready? Here goes. Here is my rant. As I half predicted, the children, at least one of the children survive. I said half of it because the two of the kids they don't survive. The older sister goes first because it looks like a scratch from the deadite in which she suffers also is enough to affect them and turn it into a deadite. Also, the kid who basically was the kind of like the one responsible to bring back the dead, he doesn't survive. He doesn't survive either. And so it made me kind of roll my eyes saying that, okay, the little girl is gonna survive. And she was the one who made the stupid move almost halfway through the movie. She almost cost them everything. And considering that she was shown to be smarter than her age, then she made that stupid move in which in a way, I kind of wish that they could have killed off that little girl. I know that I sound mean, but, well, the Evil Dead is mean, and plot armors on little children are really predictable. It's so predictable. This is why I kind of give credit to this old movie named Feast, in which it has a little boy, and that little boy gets killed. And that was kind of like my first time that I saw something like that. And so much that this is why I gave a little bit of high praise to that movie. But this little girl, my God, they didn't have the courage to kill her off. And they had the opportunity to do that. And because it kind of didn't even need it, because there was kind of a little bit of a subplot that the protagonist Beth, again played by Lily Sullivan, they kind of established that she's kind of like a roadie. She goes all around the world and she's pregnant. And I wouldn't. No. I was about to say that if you thought that I was gonna say that, oh well, then kill the baby or something like that. Well, I already have something like that in what was it, in Zemeckis' Dawn of the Dead, in which a baby had to be disposed because it turned into a zombie, but not in this case. I think that she in an early stage of pregnancy, in which, you know what, I'm kind of like dragging this thing on. But the point is that that the little girl, I think if she didn't survive, I will give out this movie a little bit more credit, because if the movie feels like it's getting aware about the typical tropes of horror movies, and if it did kill the little girl, then I will give it the kind of like, wow, I might be shocked, and you got me there, movie. You got me there. It kind of showcased that a plot armor for little children is not always necessary. But okay, that's technically one of the few complaints, and of course the movie kind of turns a little bit into action territory. This is where I also have a little bit of a mixed feeling, in which they kind of create kind of like a monster, kind of like original Deadite, which basically it is the mother combined with her two children, and they kind of meld themselves into this monstrosity that it kind of reminds me of a legion. It is basically kind of like a demonic term from many flesh co-joined into one each other. It is a cool concept, but I wish they could have executed it a little bit better. And because this is Evil Dead, of course they showcase their shotgun, and at the end of the movie, in which they had the chance to kill the little girl, it doesn't. But it leads up, of course, with to give us the other staple of the Evil Dead movie, which is none other than the chainsaw. we don't get, but I'm glad that the movie kind of restrained themselves from having the woman say groovy. Because no, this is something that you should left it for Bruce Campbell as Ash. So basically, then she kills off the creature. It also puts them into this meat grinder, and the two characters then escape the building and survive. And then the next morning we get to see this character that is from the beginning of the movie, that the one that gets possessed at the beginning of the movie. She gets out. She lives kind of in the same apartment, which kind of also begs the question. There have been this chaos in this apartment. So don't you think that the other tenants will have questions, saying that what the hell was going on? I mean, even the elevator had problems with it, and there was kind of like the how can I say, even the staircases were destroyed by the earthquake. Nobody ever heard the chaos that's going upstairs. I mean, granted, in an apartment, it's gonna be hard to what you're gonna see upstairs or downstairs. Well, not exactly. Even in this apartment, I do hear people knocking upstairs, and the big question is like, nobody ever notices the chaos that is happening upstairs. And I mean, there will be noisy as shizzles. So that kind of begs the question on the movie. And the lady, she gets on the elevator, and she doesn't. And apparently, the deadites are clean enough to clean up the elevator, which it was, because there was a moment that it gets filled, and it made an homage to The Shining. And then she goes down, and she finally sees the kind of like the bloody carcass on the garage. And then it ends up like every Evil Dead movie. Well, actually, the first Evil Dead movie, in which the POV monstrosity possess her. Oh, and by the way, they play out a little bit like that in the beginning, in which they say that, oh, here comes the monster. Oh no, it is a POV of a drone. So those are exactly kind of like my spoiler rant of the Evil Dead. So I think I am clear for that. So, but overall, I as a horror movie fan, I was kind of like really entertained by it. I didn't expect it kind of like a grand spectacle, because I was mostly predicting what this movie had. But honestly, I predicted a little bit worse, considering my taste and my knowledge on horror movies. But it surprised me. It surprised me a lot on how well the cars were executed. Although there were some predictable things that I saw it coming, but this is more out of someone who is experienced with those kind of horror movies. But yeah, check it out. Even if you're a fan of the Evil Dead, do I consider this a little bit better than the other reboot? Well, I will say that this one, it probably depends on your taste. You probably might find some memorable moments. The cheese grater probably might get you memorable because and the evil and the reboot. I will always remember the guy who get pwned a lot of times. That's pretty much that I had to say. So overall, well, groovy.